Now, additional $3.9 billion, I mentioned triggers, come primarily, not exclusively, in these two buckets. Modestly in the housing, which I mentioned, that $350, and workforce, which I mentioned, that $110. But those are modest in comparison to the two big ones on the triggers, which is climate and transportation. Why climate and transportation? Because of the magnitude of those budgets. Unprecedented, simply without any contextual precedent of any subnational jurisdiction anywhere in the world. That may sound like hyperbole, but within a margin error, I think that's not even worth a half a Pinocchio. I think that's politifactable, though now I've opened myself up, but let me say, please include these comments in your analysis. But certainly among the most significant climate investments in world history at a subnational level. Let's be specific about what I mean, just so you don't think I am being hyperbolic. $54 billion was committed this year. We're committing a $48 billion package, which again is just unprecedented investments in this space. But let me give you the rationale, and that's why there's some language here, and I'll try to be brief, and we're almost through this presentation. $48 billion. Here's my personal opinion. We're going to be able, we already have been able to draw down a lot of resources from the federal government because the Biden administration acted with urgency and acted nobly in terms of advancing the cause to low carbon future. We have all of this unprecedented inflation, the IRA Act, and then, of course, the Infrastructure Investment Act. $48 billion has already been received to date. People, if you haven't asked that question, probably should ask, how much have we received? $48 billion. We could receive an additional $48 billion that substantially go, not specifically, but broadly in this bucket. So not only filling that bucket back up, but substantially increasing the total investment. So we thought that was a smart place to consider the triggers. And if that doesn't materialize, I put up on here an idea, if that doesn't materialize, of a resource bond, which, by the way, we were promoting 3 years ago, you may recall, and then we hit the recession. And then we had so much general fund support that we didn't need it. But our commitment is firm in terms of our efforts, and we want to reinforce that without creating any stress that I know people have around any changes in multi-year appropriations. Accordingly, transportation, let's take a look. $15 billion of past investments, about a $2.2 billion augmentation here. But similarly, we're going to receive $40 billion just in the funding formula, $40 billion. We didn't know this would happen. And it was up to, respectfully, the Republican Party. None of this would have happened. Not a dollar would have come our way if Kevin McCarthy had his way. $40 billion we received, by the way, he's one of the biggest beneficiaries of that in his district. I hope he considers that. We also may receive an additional $15 billion when we get into competitive funding. We brought in my former colleague, we were mayors, Antonio Villaraigosa and others. He's been doing a wonderful job. We're going aggressively, whole team of folks going after these dollars, working the halls of Congress, and no greater partners than Nancy Pelosi and others, and we're confident we're going to see a substantial amount of those $15 billion. I want to